Good evening and welcome to the Council Advisory Committee CAC meeting of the 9th of November 2020. This meeting is being conducted with COVID-19 protocols in place for social distancing and isolation. The meeting is being conducted electronically using Zoom and is being live streamed on Facebook. Town Hall is closed to the public and the most up-to-date meeting package is on the Town of Kentville website. The public may send questions directly to the recording secretary's email at jwest@kentville.ca. This meeting is called to order. Have all of the councillors received and reviewed their meeting packages? Does any member of council have information pertaining to a matter before this council which has not been publicly circulated? Tonight's meeting will return to our standard council advisory committee where we will vote as a committee to either send business forward to the council meeting for ratification or return it to staff for further information. I will remind members of council that we should be mindful of our decision-making wheel to make balanced and respectful decisions while adhering to our code of conduct. We will be voting by poll. The chair will call your name and ask how say you. This method permits us to verbally record your vote. Are there any conflict of interest issues we should be aware of before the meeting commences? Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't know if you need me to announce it now, but I will be recusing myself from item 5B, special events bylaw, number of events.
Excellent. Thank you very much. That's been recorded, recording secretary. Cio Smith, could you please take the roll call?
Thank you, Your Worship. We have all members of council present this evening, all directors and Chief Chichetto with us. We have in the background, Jennifer West, our recording secretary, and Jason Bethune, our information technology advisor and engineer. Thank you.
Thank you. And as a matter of record, the solicitor will be joining us around 6:30. Thank you. CAO, we have been provided with a proposed agenda. Do you have anything to add?
I do not at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further additions or deletions? Councillor Zabian.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to add in discussion on the selection process of deputy mayor.
So the deputy mayor has, we'll put that under new business. So that becomes item 7C is deputy mayor.
Thank you.
And just for the record, Councillor, we do have a motion to suspend the selection of that until the November 30th. You are aware of that?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Are there any further additions or deletions to this agenda? There being none, I would call for someone to move this agenda.
So move.
Thank you. And a seconder?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Councillor Zabian, I got your name. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. You've been provided with a copy of the minutes from the October 13th, 2020 CAC minutes. Are there any changes to those? If there are no changes to the minutes are approved as distributed. If there are changes, the recording secretary will annotate the minutes in red and the annotated minutes will be added to the electronic meeting file as approved. Does anyone have anything to change to those minutes? I have one change on page 5 of the minutes. After paragraph 8A, there is a recess for the special council meeting, and at the end of the motion, there should be a statement recalling the council to the CAC meeting, ending the recess. And the motion was actually moved by Councillor Lynn Pulsifer and not Councillor Savage. So if those could be made. Moving on, we have no presentations this evening, CAO, so we'll move right on to our department reports and recommendations, and the directors have provided their reports for your review and are present if there are any questions. Cio Smith, could you please introduce our department reports and recommendations?
Thank you, Your Worship, and we'll take them in turn as they're outlined on your agenda package, starting with the Department of Finance and Director Deborah Kroll.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening to everybody. I won't go into my finance report in great detail, but I will highlight a few things that have happened in the month of October. We're looking at the month for the finance department for the town of Kentville for the month ended October 31st. The benchmark would be 58% if everything was averaged evenly over the year. And at October 31st, revenue exceeds the average at 85.3% recorded. We have our taxes recorded at 100%. We did get a few assessment changes in the month of October, but we still retained a 100% percentage point there in taxation. Under conditional transfers, the federal government has forwarded a contribution for Canada Summer Jobs Programs, and the amount that came into the town was $10,542, and that was for offsetting summer students this year. Under financing and transfers on the revenue section, all the budgeted transfers from the town's operating reserve were transacted in the month of October, as was the transfer regarding the retroactive pay for the recently signed APA collective agreement. On the expenditure side of the ledger, we're over the benchmark slightly at 63.6% expended at the end of October. General administration has paid a lot of its mandatory charges. 50% of the mandatory payments for assessment services has been paid. 100% of the low income tax relief program, that's section 69, and 100% of the charitable organizations exemptions, that's section 71 of the MGA, are recorded. And as per usual, 100% of our general insurance premium is paid. Police services, the core police program is slightly exceeds the benchmark, but it records now the retroactive remuneration paid by the town of Kentville related to the APA collective settlement. Firefighting exceeds the guideline. 100% of the hydrant charge has been forwarded to the Kentville Water Utility, and 100% of the fire area rate has been forwarded to the fire department, and 75% of the operating charge has been also forwarded to the Kentville Volunteer Fire Department. Under economic development, 100% has been transferred to Kentville Business Community as per the agreement that the town has. And cultural and recreation section exceeds the standard as 3/4 of the mandatory expenditure for the regional library has been forwarded to the province. Under financing and transfers, debt charge principal exceeds the benchmark, but it reflects the debt repayment schedule. Transfers to allowances and reserves also exceeds the guideline, but all the transfers to the town's various operating and capital reserves were completed in the month of October. On the summary of outstanding taxes, which is Schedule C, at October 31st, 97.7% of the 2021 levy is collected, and this compares to last year's figure, 94.9%. Total property tax outstanding at October 31st, 2020 is $238,515, and this compares to last year's figure of $488,734. This equates to 97.5% collected in total, and the comparative percentage for last year was 94.8%. So we're ahead of where we were at this point in time last year, which is great news. Sanitary sewer area service, which is Schedule D, is reporting for the quarter ended September 30. The benchmark would be 50% if everything was averaged evenly over the year. Revenue is just about on target at 49.4%. On the expenditure side, it's down a little bit below. It's 44% expended at the end of September. We have administrative expenditures reporting only at 17.5%. There's a lot of reallocations that have to occur there. Domestic sewer maintenance is below the benchmark at 21.2%, while pumping stations is above the guideline due to the annual insurance premium and some cleaning of several lift stations. At September 30th, the sanitary sewer area service is reporting a current surplus of $70,013. The town of Kentville capital investment plan is shown in sections G1 to G7. At October 31st, $812,628 has been recorded on our capital program, which is about 38.1%. And you'll see a big change in that in the month of November, as a lot of the invoices for some of the outstanding contracts are now flowing into the finance department for payment. So that's my report for the finance department for the month ended October 31st.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council for the director on this report? There are no questions. Moving on to the next report, which is your projection report, please.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Projection report. This is the second projection report we're bringing in. It's extrapolated to March 31st, 2021, as the figures showed at October 31st, 2020. We're looking at the deficit position of the town, increasing $12,600 from my last report. We're looking at a deficit position at this point in time of $80,400. Revenue is decreased slightly in this report, an additional $15,500 from my report last month. The major kickers in this section are related to taxes. We have some assessment changes that came in the month of October, reduced our tax revenue by $27,500. However, we did have a bump in our own source revenue unexpectedly. Parking spaces is up in the town, additional $40,700, and miscellaneous revenue from sales of recreation equipment increased our revenue streams in that section by $8,900. This money will be transferred over to the capital reserve for future purchases. On the expenditure side of the ledger, we have some numbers of savings in many departments. Legislative, I've cut that budget by another $6,600, and it relates to savings in the mayor and council expenses. There's been very little, no traveling actually happening this year, so there are some great savings there. We have general administration is increased by $16,000 related to several office expenditures. And police protection is down $6,000, mainly due to the lockup in New Minas is coming in under budget. We're going to save about $5,000 in that particular line item. Environmental development remuneration is discounted by $5,700 because no summer student was hired this year. So there's some savings in that particular section. And recreation programs are discounted another $1,000. We have a variety of changes in their programs are up $21,700 in recreation, but there are savings in other parks and the facility sections related to playgrounds, as the playgrounds and some of the facilities weren't open due to COVID, or they're open in limited capacity due to COVID. So overall, we're looking at the deficit position increasing slightly by $12,600 to $80,400 because of these things. And that's my report.
Thank you very much. I notice Councillor Gerard, you have your hand up, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. And Director Kroll, I hate to be a pain, but just to go back to Schedule H, the sewer with the county. I noticed they've been making some payments. Are we continuing to use the fee structure that we figured is right and not the one from 1960?
We are billing them status quo billings.
Okay, and they are paying the bills. What I mean is yes they still owe us money, but if we send them a bill for $20,000, they pay us $20,000, or at least that's the way it appears over the summer and over the last few months of last year.
Actually, they're paying what they feel they should pay. So no.
So we're going into Hawk okay. All right, thank you.
Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Worship. Director Kroll, under sales of service, when the back check services is expected to fall into budget by about $75,000. I feel like we had this conversation before, and perhaps it was during orientation the other day. Is that starting any kind of upward trajectory, and potentially, if not, are we looking at making an adjustment for that in next year's budget?
Well, left to be seen. We don't know. There has been some improvement in the monthly billings to back check. What the second wave is going to do, I don't think anybody knows.
No.
But we are hopeful that we will come close to the amount that has been reduced by $75,000. If we do have money in operating reserve for back check, if back check does fall under budget and we do need to withdraw money from operating reserves, we do have a back check reserve.
Sure, of course. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Director Kroll, I'm just wondering, a deficit doesn't seem to be unusual at this time of the year, at this point. And I kind of got the feeling that maybe we might have more savings because of COVID, not so much, more expenses. So I'm wondering in the end, if you see that those savings coming ahead a bit more, if we're going to be closer to.
It's left to be seen. This is a year that we're all just trucking down a road that we've never been down before. Revenue streams are down in recreation. We aren't going to probably hit our target for the arena, for example. That's a 200,000 plus, but line item in our budget. Expenses are down, yes, for travel and conventions and those types of things, but we also have expenses that we didn't expect for COVID treatments, to disinfect masks and all those things that we have never had to buy before, that we're actually having to buy in order to protect our staff as well as the public, and to keep everybody safe in all of our facilities. So it's left to be seen at the end of the day how we're going to end out, but I'm hopeful. We did get, as I mentioned in my report to you the other day, that we did get the COVID money in from the federal and provincial government.
Yes.
To offset some of the losses. So that's been tucked away in a revenue stream. You'll see that show up in my next report next month. We will be using that to offset some of the expenses and revenue streams that we are losing. So I'm hopeful that we are going to squeak out fairly close to budget. And like I said, we have money in reserves. If we do need to draw money from reserves, we can do that as well.
Thank you very much. And I was wondering, reading through everything, and I think I asked this question before, but what is the farm acreage payment? And it says over budget. I'm just wondering what that is.
It's related to some federal, provincial lands, farmlands, that are within the town, and it's just $500 or $600, $800. It's been the same for years for the most part. It's like 25 cents an acre or something. It's not very much. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councillor Zabian.
Thanks, Director Kroll. Just wondering, remind me, how much did we get for COVID money again?
I didn't write that down. It's somewhere around $187,000 for us or something like that. And Brian, maybe you can remember, but it was something like that. And $80,000 is for King's Transit or for transit purposes. I think it's somewhere around that area.
Okay,
Very,
thank you.
very close numbers, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions for the director? All right, there are none. We'll move on to your next report on general insurance recommendation.
Yes, thank you very much, Your Worship. We're looking at the Kentfield Council, you may recall, ratified the General Insurance Risk Management Services Agreement with BFL in BFL Canada Risk and Insurance Incorporated in 2017. The term of that insurance was for 4 years and the appointment expires March the 31st, 2021. Typically, we would move out to a request for proposals sometime in early January 2021 for coverage for April 1, 2021. You can see in my discussion that I've put out some facts and figures related to insurance over the past couple of years and how it affects municipalities in that municipalities are seeing more weather-related losses as the reality of climate change means more unpredictable and volatile weather patterns. Municipalities also are plagued by adverse claim trends in the municipal sector, increasing damage awards and class action lawsuits. Our liability and premiums increased in 2021 as a result of increased cost of claim settlement for Canadian municipalities and adverse claims development for the town. Presently, the town has several outstanding liability claims with our current provider, which must be disclosed as part of a request for proposal process. And in addition, we don't know the extent to which COVID-19 pandemic and other catastrophic environmental events this past year will affect the supply of municipal insurance. And we know that insurance companies for all sectors have put stricter rules in place regarding the amount and breadth of coverage that they will provide and to which clients, because the supply of insurance is reduced and the demand for insured capacity is increasing, and as such, prices are elevating. In 2019 and 2020, insurance carriers have disappeared, with JTL being purchased by Marsh, and the Frank Cowan Company was purchased as part of an acquisition by Intact Insurance. It is not known at this time how transactions will affect the market. Because of several uncertain factors, it may be prudent for the town to extend its affiliation with BFL Canada for one more year, at least until the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic have begun to stabilize. BFL Canada is open to a continued relationship with the town in 2021, and it does not anticipate issues as to the choice of limits, values, and types of coverage. Based on recent municipal renewals just booked by BFL, told that the premiums have increased. BFL anticipates about a 10% increase on property, including inflationary and value increases, about a 30 to 40% increase on the auto portion, and 10 to 15% on liability. However, who knows what the next few months are going to bring? We are all in uncharted territory. Translating the maximum anticipated pricing increases to the town's 2021 premium as an estimate, the net increase by fund could be as follows. The town of Kentville would pay an additional $24,200. The sanitary sewer operating fund would pay additional $2,300, and the water utility operating would pay an additional $3,900. Total increase would be around $30,400 overall. This would bring our insurance premium from our 2021 figure of in total $166,402 to somewhere around $196,800, which sounds like a huge increase, but I want council to be aware that in 2016-17, when we were with McDonald Trask Limited and Frank Cowan, our premium that year was $196,000. So we're still below what we would have paid Frank Cowan in 2016-17. BFL pricing over the life of the contract has ranged. In the early days, the first year we were at around $94,165. We've moved upwards in years 2 and 3. In year 3, it was $117,558. And in the year 2020, it moved upwards $166,000 to $166,400. And that's purely related to all the things that are going on in the world related to Me Too litigation, the wildfires, flooding worldwide, let alone all the municipal lawsuits and class action suits that have been affecting not only municipalities, but the world overall. So my recommendation to Council Advisory Committee is that I recommend to Council Advisory Committee that the town of Kentville extend its relationship with BFL for general insurance and risk management services for 1 year, April 1, 2021 to March 31st, 2022.
Thank you, directors. So we have a recommendation and a motion. If I could so put on the table that the Council Advisory Committee recommend that the council extend its relationship with BFL Canada for general insurance and risk management services for 1 year from April 1st, 2021 to March 31st, 2022, and that this be approved at the November 30th council meeting. If I could have someone move that, please.
So moved.
Councillor Maxwell, thank you. And a seconder?
I'll second it then.
Thank you, Councillor Savage. So it has been moved and seconded that the CAC recommend to council to extend its relationship with BFL Canada for general insurance and risk management services for 1 year, April 1st, 2021 to March 31st, 2022, and be approved at the November 30th council meeting. Is there any discussion? Councillor Zabian, I see your hand is up. Just a leftover, okay. Is there any discussion on this matter?
Question?
All right, ready for the question? The question is on the recommendation to council to extend the relationship with BFL Canada for general insurance and risk management services for a 1 year period, April 1st, 2021 to March 31st, 2022. And the council approved this at the November 30th council meeting. Councillor Gerard, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Councillor Savage? Councillor York? Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
And I say yes. The motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you very much, Director Kroll. Moving on to planning and development.
Thank you, Your Worship, and hi, good evening, Council. Again, I won't go through the entire report. I'll just highlight the highlights. For the month of October, we issued 16 development permits for a building valuation of just over $2.8 million. That has brought our year-end total in building valuation to $20,660,000. So that's great news. Ryan's Park, I just gave a quick little update. All the permits have been issued, at least in terms of development permits. Those permits have been sent to the county for them to review and issue their building permits. But for this new council and the new members of council, I did include some of the graphics, the site plan for the development, as well as the graphics of the Ryan's Park section of the whole development, and also included the link to. Anyways, so there is a link in the report that you can look at. It's going to be a really exciting development, and the buildings and the units are absolutely gorgeous. Just first, we had a group present before council, I believe, in September 14th. I've highlighted the date, September 14th, the council meeting for the new councilors who may want to look at the presentation by Stone Mountain Retirement. It's a group looking for a piece of land adjacent to the Access Nova Scotia building on Park Street, south of the industrial park, for a retirement facility. They have requested a application for a rezoning application 2 or 3 weeks ago. We have yet to see anything come in on that, but obviously if there is an application, it will come before you folks. Other than that, I think the rest of the report's self-explanatory, just highlighting just the different projects that are happening in town. But if you have any questions, by all means, I'm here to answer them.
Are there any questions for the director? Councillor Maxwell.
Councillor, gentlemen, I just have a couple of things. What are the 2 zoning certificates? I understand Stone Mountain is probably one of them. What would be the second one?
No, Stone Mountain didn't get one. Lots of times banks and mortgage companies will require a zoning certificate when properties are purchased.
Okay.
So as they change hands, yeah, so.
That's what that is. It's not somebody asking for a rezoning or anything.
No, it's just clarification that they have the right zone for the use that the building's being used for.
And I don't know if this next query comes to you or to Director Bedingfield, but when I was out campaigning, I spoke to several neighbors up in McDougall Heights. And they're quite concerned about the fact that they don't have a park up there yet. And paramount in their concerns is that the developer keeps moving the location. And I'm wondering if there's a way that we can at least pin down the location by the developer, so that maybe we can get started on something up there at some time in the near future.
Okay, I can answer that. We do have land now. That was, we're just in the middle of trying to get the deed given to us from Bryson's requirement. That's been surveyed out. We're just waiting for the deed. The Parsons new subdivision area that they're in the middle of we're working on with them. There's just a few outstanding items that we need to address before we take over the road so we can subdivide the roads. But they also have parkland included in that as well, which is adjacent to the Bryson land. So it's going to be one big piece of land. And within that, there's lots of room for trails. There are trailheads along intersecting some of the streets so people can come off the streets and walk through the park and meander down through the whole subdivision. So we'll have the land. It'll just be up to Director Bedingfield to come up with the money and council to do any amount of work within that to make it usable.
I think one of the big concerns was pinning down where it was going to be. So thank you very much.
I can certainly send you a copy of the plot plan tomorrow if you're
Okay.
interested.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. Director, gentlemen, I see on your report, it's got special events bylaw, and at the end it says a staff report is going to be submitted for December CAC. This item is coming up at this meeting. Is there going to be anything in that report that we're going to need to know for this meeting today?
No, when I did my report, I didn't have anything available. Yeah, it wasn't on my agenda. The initial changes to the special events bylaw was actually under the umbrella of the previous CAO, so I hadn't been doing anything on it. And then there were some inquiries that came through Councillor Savage and some other folks wanting to know when it was going to be on the agenda. So I picked it up and ran with it and came up with the two reports that are on the agenda. So yeah, it's
Okay. All right. Thank you.
you're welcome.
All right, nothing further on that. We'll move on to the community and economic development. Is somebody responding to that one, if there's any questions? Councillor Maxwell, your hand is still up. Are you?
No.
Okay. If you've read that that report from Community and Economic Development, you'll see that there's all kinds of things happening in Kentville, and as you know, end of November is typically our tree lighting ceremony and the beginning of the holiday shopping season in downtown Kentville. It's kind of been rejigged this year. There is a call for volunteers, so if you're interested, please sign up. It is, I'm going to say, your first opportunity as a sitting councillor to get out there and do the meeting and greeting, and it's really a very fun evening. So if you get the opportunity, please do join in. All right, moving on to Parks and Recreation.
Good evening, Council. You have my, excuse me. Excuse me, I'm just emotional. You have my report in front of you. I'm going to highlight a few areas here that I want to make sure that that you have in front of you. The Kentville Centennial Arena, Director Kroll, it's Monday. Director Kroll mentioned this in her report with regards to revenue. We are, as restrictions kind of loosen up a little bit, we've been able to open up this arena quite a bit. I'm actually really proud with how both our staff have been following the protocols in place, but also just as importantly, the community. We really appreciate the respect of the community and user groups for following the outlined guidelines. The guidelines come from both us as a facility, but also from sport organizations and provincial organizations. Everyone seems to be communicating really well. And yeah, I just wanted to pass along a word of thanks, and hopefully you'll join me in that as well. The other piece there is that I really want you to pay attention to is this just came out. It's not really new data, but it's been circulating out there as well, that Nova Scotia Arena, 60% of Nova Scotia arenas allocate fewer than 10 hours a week for girls and women. I want to bring this to your attention because in the town of Kentville, we have 45% of our time is allocated towards female sport, and that's something to be really proud of. Along with the fact that your facility manager, Kevin Bennett, just informed me that he is now chairing the provincial task team for female participation in facilities for the province. So we're very committed to equity on a lot of levels. We also have the only sledge hockey program in the region at our arena, and it kind of filters through the rest of our facilities and programs as well. But that's something that I feel you should be screaming from the rooftops, but also holding other arenas and facilities accountable, because as much as we provide access to female sport, there is not enough arena, specifically arena time slots for female sport. When we started, with a concerted effort to make sure that we had equitable access to our arena, specifically female hockey in this area was just starting out, and now the demand is so big that they're looking for space. So this is what happens when you have a concerted effort for things. Under Parks and Trails, our Parks Department, much like every year, and this is important to note, we drop drastically. So we only have one person out there right now and are managing all of our parks. So, you know, bear with us. This does mean that we take in a number of garbage cans, and you may hear that, but we just can't stay on top of it. And also we do expect our community to pack out the garbage that they take into the parks as well. So this should be promoted as well. And it's also noted that we don't have any winterized washrooms. So our washrooms for the public also shut down. And that's something maybe to look at moving forward. Under programs, we started a neat program this year. Ashley took the lead on this, and that is partnering with the town of Wolfville and local physicians to offer, it was actually a memory cafe that we partnered with Tan Coffee, where folks who are experiencing dementia and their caregivers would come and have coffee and talk to some local practitioners to support memory loss and the prevention of memory loss. That COVID hit, we had to move it all online, and they have on average for every online session about 50 people that come on to this online call. So it is definitely a service in this area, and we're really pleased to be able to do that. Also, the Wolfville and Kentville, I keep saying it's Ashley, just presented on this at a provincial Recreation Nova Scotia conference. So they're getting a lot of traction throughout the province as well and spreading the word on how to do it. KCA School, this is important to note, the province announced that we can access the gym. That does not mean the gym is all of a sudden open. I can't stress that enough. We're working really closely with Victoria, who's the principal of KCA, to make sure all parties feel comfortable. You know, right now the washrooms and the change rooms in the KCA school are filled with furniture that had to be removed from classrooms so that there could be enough space for the kids. So it's not as easy as just opening it up. We can't get in there on the weekends because though there's extra money to hire janitors, there's no janitors to hire. So these are kind of the hurdles that we're looking at. Our job is to really support KCA as much as possible to allow our community to access the facility, but doing it in a way that everyone feels comfortable moving forward. What I can tell you is that the need is far greater than the availability of space. This isn't uncommon for KCA school, for gyms in general in the area. It kind of points to the need for a discussion about facilities, but it's even more dire, I would say, now than ever before. Capital projects, you can see the report on the updated capital projects. The one I wanted to focus on again is the accessible playground piece. This was a big one for KCA school. It took us forever to get the actual equipment to arrive. Sorry. And it finally did, but now of course it's weather dependent and making sure that we have all the right people lined up. So that's probably going to be held off until the spring. So we're hoping to still be able to get it in there within this fiscal. The thing about adding an accessible piece of equipment, of course, is that it's more than just the equipment itself, it's the footing. So this is quite a large project. It does mean that we're going to have to rip up some of the green space on the playground to be able to put that rubber footing that you see, because we want kids to be able who have mobility issues or are wheelchair users to be able to access this piece of equipment. Just so you know, it's one of those pieces of equipment where you get on and you spin it. I often feel sick when I look at it. It's that type of a thing. But when we were talking to the kids at the school who are wheelchair users, what they told us is that by the time they get down to the playground, they can't actually, there's no one there to help them transfer out of their chairs onto the equipment that's existing. They need a place where they can just wheel right on. So this is one of the pieces that they chose. And so they can get down there, eventually they'll be able to wheel right on and they can all spin and throw up together. It's going to be lovely. It'll be great. Also under capital, just a note about the dog park. We were trying to talk to some folks that were involved with this. Again, we're building this dog park in partnership with New Minus. And so we're getting one step closer. So you should hopefully see some ground preparation happening within the coming weeks. Again, this is all weather dependent. Public engagement and community events. Harvest, I can't even tell you how exciting Harvest Fest was this year. So again, this is the year of trying something new, and that meant throwing a whole bunch of things out the window. We had an inordinate amount of people participating in all of this stuff, and this is kudos to Ashley again. We hid 200 pumpkins. Almost all of them are found. You can see here that within the photo submission contest, we had 898 submissions, which is absolutely crazy. She had to code them all. So it's been a really wonderful way to engage the community in a year that's very hard to engage people in general. So I'm really proud of the work that our department has done. And we're definitely going to take away some of these ideas moving forward. You can see some of the stuff that we're planning for what would be a traditional Torchlight Parade. We're doing the same thing that we did almost for Apple Blossom, where we're bringing the event to different neighborhoods in the hopes that we don't want a whole bunch of people gathering in one place. So this is all through COVID. Restrictions and regulations. Meetings and events, the only one there that you may be interested in is recently CAO Smith, myself, and Kevin Bennett have been meeting with the towns and municipality around facility. So there'll be more to update you later on about that as we figure stuff out. But the discussions are happening, which I would say is a very positive piece. Council priorities, the accessibility committee. I met with you all last week to go over it. There is an updated engagement strategy that is, once it's confirmed, I'll send it out to you all, but it has a lot more opportunity for folks to come and talk to both myself, our department, drop-ins downtown, drop-ins at the rec center as a way to gather as much information as possible. Of course, the art engagement piece is still out there, as well as the survey. Excuse me. And then the last piece is there. Again, these are two pieces. Excuse me, the department around the resport, that's really just a fancy way Sport Nova Scotia is looking to find prototypes on ways to create more inclusive sport. Town of Kentville is one of those places. So we've been working with Sport Nova Scotia and researchers on some of our projects. And the other research piece there is based on the SHIRT grant that we got in partnership with UNB and Acadia, where essentially we're evaluating our response to COVID and how it impacts our community. And that's my report.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for the director? Councillor Maxwell.
Thanks, Rachel. I'm interested, of course, on the multi-purpose facility discussions, and I'm glad to know that discussions are happening. And I noticed Wolfville, Kentville, Berwick, Kings County, but I'm wondering about Acadia. Are they going to come in on any of these discussions, or are they, taking a back seat? What's going on with the university?
I think right now there's different components of it, and CAO Smith can jump in here if he wants to, but right now we're just kind of figuring ourselves out and how and what we're going to do as municipalities. We have been also working with the community group that's out there as well. Yeah, but Acadia has not come up in conversation, nor has Greenwood for that matter, but they are on, I would say they will be engaged.
Okay, great. Thank you.
No further questions? CAO Smith, did you want to add anything to that?
Just to remind council to watch for something from me in the near future. We're hoping to bring councils together to brief them on a couple of things. And December 18th from 1 to 4 p.m. looks like an opportunity that we'll be in touch with you about that recreation issue and what progress we've made at the staff level. It's time to brief the councils. And so you'll hear more from us about December 18th in the near future. But just if you want to mark it down and know that we won't keep you in the dark any longer than we absolutely have to. But we've only had 2 meetings or perhaps 3 at this point, just trying to understand the issue. We had a really good briefing today from a community group, 3 people that have been doing a lot of background work on this subject. So we're getting up to speed, and we'll share that all with you.
Thank you. Councillor York.
I just wanted to say that I've been in some of the facilities for the first time, like post-COVID, and I wanted to pass along my appreciation for the upgrades that have been happening. So in the rec center, it looks fantastic in the washrooms, and the arena looks absolutely fantastic, and it's clean and orderly and really easy to use. So I really appreciate the efforts your staff have gone through to get them up and running so efficiently.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. There is there's a few benefits with not having community in there for a little bit. We've been able to do some things, but yeah. And to Councillor York's point about the rec center, I think I've mentioned this before. We're really focused on making the rec center, especially the lower rec center, as accessible as possible, including updating the washroom downstairs. So we will have at least one fully accessible facility in town, which is great.
Nice. All right, well, thank you. All right, moving on to the police for the chief's report. Chief, do you have anything to add?
I don't. I guess for the new counselors, I should say that you'll notice that the report is August and September, and that's because I actually report to Board of Police Commissioners, and we did not meet in October due to elections. It was around the same time. And so we have a meeting scheduled for December. So we should be back up and you'll be getting the previous month by January. So, and as you can see, I basically give you some stats and then meetings that I attend. So, and for us, I guess no news is good news. I do, however, have a little bit of bad news today, is that I am losing 4 members of my staff. Halifax Regional Police has recruited and taken 3 of our young people. And then the term is finished. So I have hired the cadet who spent the summer with us. So she started last week, and to say I will lose 3 of them within the next 2 weeks. So huge changes for us coming up. It does speak very well to the quality of young people that we've hired and the training we've put into them. It doesn't help, however, when we watch them leave, but it's what they want to do, and so that's what they should do. So we have put out a posting, and hopefully we will be shortlisting and starting a process to interview and background check and that sort of thing, and possibly by, well, I'd like to say December, but it may be January before we have those positions filled. We have started training again, so there are some courses that departments are starting to host. We have an officer going to Amherst for a training course. As you can see on the report, Atlantic Police Academy has started training again. So those are some of the things that we require. So interview skills, use of force trainer, that's a mandatory provincial requirement, that sort of thing. So you'll start to see a little bit of training start to come back. It will be nothing like previous years. We are still affected by COVID. I'm just looking at my notes here. We've been doing a fair amount of work with the local shelter. It just opened up this week, and so getting some people settled. And again, for those of you who don't know, we work with the shelter a little bit on ensuring that the people who go there are safe. So if they come in through us, then they have to sign a waiver that says they will be, their backpacks will be searched and that sort of thing, so that we're not putting anybody in the shelter that is a risk to the volunteers that work there. So we've been doing some work with that, and a couple of people who maybe are disruptive. So it seems to be going well overall though. And we were just involved with Acadia University researcher doing what they call a PIT count, which is a homelessness count for our area. So we don't have the results for that, or I don't. Rachel May, she was involved as well on her side, I think. But as I say, we don't have the results of that, but that finished a week or so ago. So, and that's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. There seems to be a couple questions. Councillor Maxwell.
Oh, no, not right now.
Okay, Councillor Savage.
Thank you, Worship. Julia, just a question: when you hire new officers and you do the training with them, are you ever able to, or are they obliged to sign any kind of contracts in any way that you know, so that they have to stay on for like a 3-year stint or something, or is that?
No, so I mean, I think the town of Campbell does actually have a policy that if you leave after or within 2 years, you could have to pay back the cost of training. We don't do that in the police department because we actually have to have those skills developed. So,
sure.
And we have no way of knowing kind of who will stay and who will go. And
okay.
So no, we don't do that.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Maxwell.
Yes, hi, Julia. Just wondering, the traffic offenses were up, I noticed. I'm wondering if this is mainly speeding going on in town.
So speeding continues to be an issue. We've just moved our sign. The digital sign was up in Bonavista, and we just moved it over to Acadia. Generally, speed is perceived, especially on the side streets, and that's what those signs show. So if you remember, they record the data, so we can pull that off. And it tends that the speed is actually not ticketable, which I'm not sure is a word. The speed, some of it is Chester, and but no, the bulk of that is not actually speeding. I wish I could tell you it was, but it's not.
Okay.
They are back to doing more enforcement, as well as Harlan, the bylaw officer. He is also, he came in today with several tickets. So we are back to doing enforcement. As you know, we weren't doing a lot during the peak of COVID, but we seem to be back on track for what we've always done there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Councillor Zabian.
Yes, Chief, just remind me, how many officers should we have on staff in Kentville? If we didn't lose those 3, how many would there be?
We have a complement of 17.
Okay,
And so, yes, we will be down to 14 in a couple of weeks.
okay, thank you.
All right, no further questions for the chief. Moving on to engineering and public works with our director's report.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, Council. My report's already kind of in highlight format, but I will go through a few of the items I should touch on. First being the new bridge. It has, everybody probably knows, it has the top lift of asphalt. There are still a few deficiencies. I was speaking with the Transportation's project manager today, and they plan to fix those between tomorrow and the next day. And they plan to do line painting, which I thought was going to happen last week, but because those deficiencies will happen on Thursday at this moment. So the line painting will make I think a big difference on the perception of the bridge, and there'll be a bike lane on both sides, and it'll make, I think, folks feel a little more at ease on the sidewalk sides, where there'll be that buffer between the travel lane and the bike lane, and then the pedestrian sidewalks that are elevated. With capital works projects, we're winding things up. Mid Valley is finishing, or really, I guess, in the midst of project on East Main Street to repair and replace the retaining wall and sort of treacherous sidewalk that was sort of been in bad condition since that wall started to fail. That will be done within the next week or 10 days. And Littles are finishing up 2 projects, one on Webster Street between Patty's and Jason's Independent, and that is really taking shape now. The sidewalks should be poured tomorrow, so that'll really complete the outside, so they can finish the paving, which will happen in the next 4 or 5 days. The sidewalk to Miners Landing is complete. The trail, I guess, from Miners Landing down to the trailhead and crosswalk is complete, and that sort of wraps up the capital works. Under Kentville Water Commission, we did our mandatory lead testing, 20 random samples throughout commercial and residential customers. We had 19 come back well below the limit, and 1 sample from a residence was roughly 3 times the allowable limit. And we explained to that homeowner likely causes being internal plumbing and likely fixtures causing that lead sort of anomaly. Certainly not in our water, as the other tests can prove. Our generators are now functional down at Mitchell Avenue and the Mitchell East well houses. So we're already, should we have a power outage this winter, with those 2 locations, we can provide water to all 4 of our water tanks. Winter tenders closed. I guess that was the end of October, a week and a half ago, for hauling salt from Pugwash, and that was awarded to Howard Little Excavating. And the sort of on-call assistance for plowing of streets when we have a big storm was awarded to Dexter once again. They had the last 3 years, and then they were successful for the next 3. Meetings, I guess the sort of the highlight one, Mayor Snow and Kirsten Duncan and myself have been going to, I guess this is now our 4th AIM network meeting. I guess on my report, really, I'm highlighting the last month's, the third one. But we have one more to go, and that'll complete our first phase of our infrastructure asset management training, and it's been very interesting, and lots of things to bring to help us plan for capital expenditures, and also requirements for us to get funding is for us to have that training completed. Those are my highlights, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Your Worship. Director Bell, just a quick question. I thought, and maybe I'm absolutely wrong, but I thought when we were doing the little jaunt on Webster Street from Patty's down to the back of Jason's parking lot, that where the old McDonald Chisholm building and Patty's were, there was going to be a bump out.
It was talked about. You're absolutely correct. It was talked about. The difficulty with that, it's narrowed it down to sort of eliminate the less. I think the side you're thinking of would be on the Patty side, where we would narrow it down to sort of discourage through traffic in the left lane. Left lane, if you're queued up at the lights, say by Scotiabank, and you're supposed to turn left only, and people do go through. The difficulty is trucks that make that right-hand turn from Aberdeen onto Webster, where we've widened it 3 feet both sides now. We've sort of shrunken it down almost 6 feet. Any farther, and they would be up over the curb if we'd have bumped that out anymore.
That makes sense.
Deputy Mayor. Yeah.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any further questions for the director? Councillor Maxwell.
Thanks, Director Bell. Just a couple of things that came up again during election time, and I just run these by you. At the end of Oak Dean, between, I think it's Wade Street and Exhibition, there's one side of that street, it's not the whole street, but one side that's pretty bumpy and potholy. The other half seems to have been done at some point. And so a lot of the residents are complaining about that bumpy section through there. Also, garbage cans seem to be a hot topic. And
okay,
where people were looking for them were out on Park Street at the farther end. I think there might be one just before you get to Palmer subdivision, but then as we extend out, there's nothing along that route there. And so that was one area. And Belcher there's one at the very bottom, but there's nothing all the way up to King's Tech. So maybe around Campbell Road or something. And the final thing was, somebody mentioned to me they'd like to see some signs, not no litter signs, but something a little bit more positive, like keep Kensal clean or something like that. So I just throw those out to you, and you can run with them if you like.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Maxwell.
You're welcome.
Councillor Zabian.
Thanks, Director Bell. This is probably, I'm asking this probably to the wrong director or the wrong person, but I'm just wondering, probably should have asked the chief this, or maybe the rec department. I don't know who puts the benches downtown. I noticed that, and we know in the past there was a huge problem with loitering around the Toronto Dominion Bank. And I noticed one was kind of slumped there the last week, and I'm just wondering, I know for quite a while they'd hired their own security to do that, and I'm just wondering how that wound up there. And it might not even be your department.
It wouldn't be mine, but
Right.
I think the downtown benches, if I'm correct, are part of beautification.
Okay.
But you say there's a bench by the TD Bank
There
now?
is one right on the side there, and I know they had a huge, for years, they used to hire their own private security, and I just think
Correct.
that's looking for trouble again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't
It's
know where
right
that
as
one
you're
came
driving
from.
into the square.
Go ahead.
Dave,
Yeah, it's
and-
great
and
if you're
Worship-
driving into Center Square.
Yeah, if I can help you there.
Okay.
We had some communication with the bank
Okay.
about the fact that people were lining up there for quite a while, and there were some elderly people. And so on a very short-term basis, we've moved a bench in, and it's something actually done through our economic development and downtown folks, just responding to a short-term need. But as you know, all
Okay.
those benches come up shortly for
Yeah.
the winter.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
No further questions for the director? All right, moving on to CAO. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. And coincidentally, one of the things I was going to mention is a brief commercial message for a couple of the new councillors. If you touch your space bar, it'll unmute you temporarily. When you're talking at some length, like I'm about to, not that long, but I should take the mute off. So forgive me. Two things I wanted to mention though, out of the other reports. The term back check, I didn't know what it was when I came here, but it is background checks. So we have people that are overnight processing background checks. And we have a bit of a commercial arrangement to do that. That's quite significant for us. So when they talk about back check revenue being down during COVID, it was, and it should come back up as activities get going. It's obviously something we don't know for sure, like many things with COVID. The second thing was that I met with the Chief Chichetto today and asked her if when the police commission has arranged for Department of Justice to come in, the chief has helped arrange for justice officials to come in and talk about the role of police commission and all that kind of thing, that we might be able to find a few extra seats. If there are members of council who have an interest in the function of the commission, why not take advantage of the training opportunity? So stay tuned. I had the date a minute ago, December something.
December 4th at 1 p.m.
December 4th at 1 p.m. And we will, I guess tonight I'll try to send you an email, but we will need to know who's interested because we have to make sure we have enough materials and refreshments if need be for you to come in. But it's a 3-hour session about police commissions. So very interesting, I think. Now, looking at my report, the most important job I have right now is working on Cio Recruitment. The posting closes on Thursday, and thanks to the selection committee, I haven't kind of confirmed this with you all in writing, but at 2 o'clock on Thursday, we hope to have our first meeting, a planning meeting, just a brief one, so we can get that process figured out. And I'm very, very pleased with the applications that we've received so far, and I hope to share that with the selection committee fairly soon, plus whatever comes in the next couple of days. And I have to say that a number of the ones that came in just on the weekend are superb. So I'm really quite pleased. Two other things down under meetings and events. As Rachel mentioned, we've been meeting with the CAO's group, doing some background work on a multi-purpose events recreation facility, just background work at this point. But we're also meeting with the King's CAOs on intermunicipal service agreements. You'll see the acronym there, IMSA. Get used to it. We're going to be doing a lot of work on IMSAs in the next while because a number of them have been in place. Frankly, I wrote 1 or 2 of them. So they're too long. They need to be freshened up, same as I do. And on November 3rd, I had my first meeting with the Kentville Museum about their lease agreement. They lease the former train station, and they'd like to keep leasing the former train station. So 2 things will happen. One is I'll try to negotiate with them, but secondly, try to get them to come to CAC perhaps in December and explain what they've been doing, which is quite interesting. So stay tuned for that. And Your Worship, I can cover the communication report also if you want.
Please.
I don't do the communication. Our storm team, our communication team does the work. But hey, I want you to notice the headings there about the Pumpkin People Festival and all the communications around that. About the website activity being higher last month than I think it's ever been, partly because of the election and partly because of the pumpkins. The Facebook page is growing by 200 likes. I don't know what the total is, but just that much growth in 1 month. And for those of you young enough to use Instagram, and I have it on my phone, but I'm not quite sure what it's telling me some of the time. The town currently has 1,656 followers. And I think that means we're reaching out to the younger generation in our communications on Instagram. And that is so, so important as as a grandfather to know that those people that use Instagram are actually talking to us on a regular basis. So that's my report, Your Worship.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
That's
Are there any
all of
questions?
our reports, and we're ready to have a motion to accept them.
Thank you. Were there any questions for the CAO before we proceed to the motion?
Yes.
All right, none. If I could have a motion to accept the staff reports as presented. Councillor Zabian, thank you. And a seconder? Councillor York, thank you. It has been moved and seconded the staff reports be accepted as presented. All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you. We'll move on now to our unfinished business. And the first matter that we have in business arising or unfinished business is the special events bylaw, COVID-19 adjustments. Director Gentleman, are you leading this one?
Sure. Yeah, since I put the report together, I'll do my best with bringing council up to date on this. We have had a special events bylaw in place since 2016. And I'll just read the report. Jess Healy has been promoting their property at 439 Prospect Avenue as a place to rent for special events such as weddings and other similar private gatherings under the provisions of the special events bylaw, Chapter 96 since 2016. One of the conditions of the bylaw was limiting the use of the property to a maximum of 15 events per year, and that would be any calendar year. COVID-19 put an incredible strain on the wedding industry and other special events and gatherings during the peak season of 2020. As a result, Healy Events have had to cancel most of their weddings during this time. In May 2020, Jess Healy submitted a letter, which is attached to the report, requesting the council approve 5 additional events for the year 2021 due to their loss of available dates during the 2020 year of COVID-19. Council in May did approve that request, and now the bylaw amendment is required to confirm the decision. So attached to the report is the letter. So the minutes from the May 2020 council meeting outlining council's decision at the time to approve the 5 additional events for the year 2021 only. And so this would be necessary, this amendment or new bylaw would be necessary to facilitate the request for the 5 additional events for 2021. So the recommendation would be that CAC forward the proposed resolution and special events COVID-19 amending bylaw, Chapter 101 for council for first reading in November.
Thank you. So we do have a recommendation leading to a motion, if it so pleases, that Council Advisory Committee recommend first reading of the proposed resolution and special events COVID-19 amending bylaw Chapter 96 to the council meeting on November 30th, 2020. If we could have a motion for that, please. Councillor Savage, did I see your hand? No, okay. I have no motion for that. All right.
Sorry, I think I'm confused. Maybe I'm not the only one.
So this is the 5, we're taking the 5 from 2020 and adding them to 2021.
Correct.
So they get 5
Your Worship,
additional.
if I can add in here,
Carry
council,
it.
you're ratifying a decision you've already made.
Yeah, so I'll make that
Okay.
motion. My apologies.
Thank you. So this is just 5 additional in 2021. And these are the ones that were canceled in 2020 due to COVID. So it's a very square box, very narrow change. And if I could have a second, please. Councillor Maxwell, thank you. It has been moved and seconded that CAC recommend the first reading of the proposed resolution and special events COVID-19 amending bylaw, Chapter 96, to the council meeting on November 30th, 2020. Discussion. The floor is open for discussion. Councillor Zabia.
Thanks, Director Gentleman. I have a couple of questions. The first one is, who decides I know when you send out surveys, who decides the 500-meter distance as the maximum that you have to reach out to people?
For this, yeah. Good
Or
question.
I guess maybe I should wait until you get on to the next. Does it matter?
No, I know this is a little confusing because we get two items
Right.
relating to the special events bylaw.
Maybe I should wait. Should I?
Well, no, I can answer it now because it may also help with the next one. So we added some amendments to the land use bylaw as well
Mm-hmm.
through this whole process of allowing that property to be used for special events and to put certain criteria within the special events bylaw. And that's, we kind of looked at what we would normally do for a variance under the MGA or a zoning request under the MGA. That's that distance and site plan approval, what we would normally use to notify adjacent property owners, and put that in the special events bylaw. There's really no magic to it, just 500 feet seemed to be the magic number.
And it's not exclusive to this situation. It's any special events.
Special events under the
Right.
special events bylaw. As it is right now, that is the only property. It was crafted in a way that there wouldn't be a lot of properties within town that could convert their homes or their residential property to be able to have these special events and weddings and things on a regular basis. So the bylaw and the provisions that were added to the land use bylaw were crafted in a method that's really the property at the top of the Healy Events property is really the only property that meets the criteria in terms of size of the property, the fact that it had to have an existing building on it. So you couldn't go out and buy a 6-acre lot, put a house on it, and then fall under the guise of the special events bylaw.
Okay, thanks for that. I find it hard to, and I'm not with the 500 meters. I find that hard to look at the whole situation because it really encompasses so many people up there and not just the 500 mark. So just, yeah, that's how, when I look at it, because Deer Havens, there's quite a few residential areas up there, as well as when you go up Prospect. And I mean, sound travels and, 500 meters, my opinion, doesn't seem like a fair distance for any, not just this situation, but any special events.
But that 500 feet was only a notification to folks to let them know that next week,
Right.
they don't have any ability to come before council or say we don't want it. It's just a courtesy to let people know.
But correct me if I'm wrong, the 500 feet is also the distance you use when you send out the survey, right?
That was the kind of the extra
Yeah.
step that we took with this
Okay.
request, knowing that the next report that we're going to look at is the request for an additional 5 for every year.
Right.
So there were two requests in the letter that was presented to council in May. One, it's COVID-19. We've lost a lot of business. Will you at least allow us 5 additional for the year 2021? And further to that, we would also like to make a request to add 5 on an annual basis to go from 15 to 20. That would be the next report.
Okay, thank you.
The notification aspect of it is just those people, when an event has been scheduled, those folks will be within 500 feet, will be notified when that will be.
Okay.
Lister.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I just thought it might be helpful to add, especially for the new councillors, that the adoption of a bylaw goes through 2 readings, so it will come to council twice. So if CAC makes this recommendation to council, it will go to council for first reading. Then it will come back to the next council meeting. So you will have a month in between, during which time the public can let you know what they think of it. If you ever have a bylaw that you think you want to invite the public to come and present to council, then they have that opportunity too. You always have the opportunity at the end of meetings to have the public let you know what they have thought of any item. I leave it to the CAO how that's working in COVID times. I know there's an invitation to send an email. So there is an opportunity for the public to let you know what they think of this before you actually adopt it. I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that.
Right. Thank you, Solicitor. Was there any further discussion on this matter, or are you ready for the question? The question is to recommend first reading of the proposed resolution and special events COVID-19 amending bylaw chapter 96 to the council meeting on November 30th, 2020. So, yes, Director.
Yeah, it's actually chapter 101. It's a brand new bylaw. Right, so this is the COVID-19 amending bylaw. So we're actually adopting a brand new bylaw, not amending the old one.
I guess it is a new bylaw, but the effect of it is that it amends the old one. It adds a new section to the old.
Right, but it's a new bylaw number, correct, Solicitor? This is the way we drafted it up.
Yes, it will have a new bylaw number.
Right.
Whatever the next one is at the time that it gets adopted.
Yeah, right. Okay.
So the motion is incorrect then. So it should
Your
read.
Worship, I would suggest we just take chapter 101 out of the motion and pass it without that reference.
Okay, so we are actually only recommending this to council. So you still have some real decision making and consideration of what people have said. So we are acting in a committee role here, and we're just putting this on council's desk, so to speak, for decision of first reading. So the question is to recommend first reading of the proposed resolution and special events COVID-19 amending bylaw to the council meeting on November 30th, 2020. Councillor Gerard, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Councillor Savage?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
I say yes, the motion is carried. Director Gentleman, did you want to proceed with the next one?
Yes, please. Thank you. So,
Before you do, sorry, Councillor Savage, could you?
What would you like me to do? Did you want me to just mute
I'm
and
not
stop my video?
Yeah.
I'm recusing myself, Solicitor Matar.
Yes.
Do that?
Yes, please. Thank you.
okay, so this request was also in the same letter that was dated in May of 2020. And this is a request by the wedding planner and property owner to amend the special events bylaw to allow for 20 events per year rather than the current 15. So quickly, Jess Healy and Steve Healy were the impetus for council adopting a special events bylaw in 2015 to help them with their efforts to promote their property at 439 Prospect Avenue as a space to host special events such as weddings and other similar private gatherings. During their first year, the property hosted 14 private weddings for folks from across North America and Europe. All the events, which were held between May and October, were a great success. So great that demand for the following year doubled. Due to the increase in demand, the Healy's requested council amend the bylaw to increase the number of events per year from 20 to 30. And that would have been in 2017. In addition, a less contentious request was to change the notification requirements to adjacent property owners from 5 days before each event to the beginning of the season. On November 28th, 2016, council gave first reading to the proposed changes, and in accordance with the Municipal Government Act, notice of council's intention to consider second reading was published in a local newspaper. Prior to second reading in January of 2017, several emails and written submissions were received regarding the proposed changes. A synopsis of those comments is attached to the report, and the actual submissions can be found on the council website during the January 30th, 2017 council meetings for your information. Council discussed several issues during their deliberations on the amendments. At the conclusion of the meeting, second reading of the proposed amendments was defeated, so the number of events remain at 15 at this time. In May 25th, 2020, council considered another request of the Healy's, and that again was the COVID amending bylaw, which was recently passed, but also within that request was also to change the notification requirements from 5 days beforehand, or one letter going out at the beginning of the year. As the bylaw is actually written right now, they can do that. It's just, yeah, so if they've got 30 events or 20 events planned, one letter can go out outlining the entire, all the dates for those events. So if, okay. So I don't know what's the if amending the bylaw to increase. So if amending the bylaw to increase the annual events per year from 15 to 20 was denied, a special allowance. Okay, so this was, again, I'm just highlighting the requests that was in that letter. And everything highlighted under that discussion aspect of the report has already been addressed under the COVID. Right now, we're looking at whether or not council wishes to consider amending the original special events bylaw to change the number of events per year from 15 to 20. So in considering the history of the property, staff in consultation with the CAO at the time felt that it was prudent to notify those residents subject to the notification requirements of the special events bylaw of this request that came before council in May. A letter and a survey went out to those folks within that 500-foot parameter. 14 letters in the survey were mailed out and 11 were returned. And if you can read the see the results of those surveys, we had 4 come in that agreed with this special of increasing the number of events from 15 to 20, but 2 of those came from the property owners. So we thought that that would skew the results. 3 returned, 3 of the 14 that went out did not agree with the events being increased, and there was 4 respondents that said the number of events per year did not concern them either way. 1 came back without a signature or a name or address on that, so we took that out. So all in all, 11 were returned from out of the 14. And essentially you have 2 that agree with the increase, 3 that did not agree with the increase, and 3 that it didn't bother them either way. In addition, 4 emails were received, and they have been attached to this report. There's been subsequent emails that came in during today. We did contact the police department since the adoption of the bylaw to find out how many complaints that they had received regarding any type of noise complaints or anything else about the property. And they received 1 noise complaint in September of 2018, and the other complaint that they got wasn't even related to the venue. It was a possible gunshot, from what I understand, in February of 2020. So I have attached letters of requests for the amendments. Some of the emails that came in prior to submitting this for council last week, and a synopsis of the comments that came in regarding one of the other requests that came before council in January 2017. This is all for your information. So the recommendation is, if it is CAC, Council Advisory Committee's desire to approve the requested amendment, I recommend that CAC forward the proposed amendments to the special events bylaw, chapter 96, to council for first reading. And there's a couple small adjustments that within the resolution that we need to fix up. Nothing that's going to change the intent of the resolution, but one should be placed before subsection 5.7 and 2 should be, it's just a numbering aspect of the bylaw. So that would be the recommendation.
All right, council, we have a recommendation, and if it's so please, a motion that Council Advisory Committee to recommend first reading of the proposed amendment to increase the number of events to 20 per year to the special events bylaw, chapter 96, to council for first reading at the council meeting on November 30th, 2020. Do I have someone willing to make a motion to that matter? Again, we are not making a decision here tonight. We are acting as a committee and pushing it to council for review and decision-making and the collection of information from citizens. Councillor York, did I see your hand?
Yes, so moved.
Thank
Is that the
you.
language?
And Councillor Huntley, did I see yours as a second? Thank you.
Thank you.
So it has been moved and seconded that CAC recommend first reading of the proposed amendment to increase the number of events to 20 per year to the special events bylaw, chapter 96, to council for first reading at the council meeting on November 30th, 2020. Is there any discussion? Councillor Gerard, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Worship. Director, gentlemen, just for my own, I guess. So you've really not made a recommendation, except if council wants to move forward with this, then we send it for. And I guess my other question is, when should council say, you know what, it's a residential area and currently it's zoned residential. This venue should look at getting a rezoning to a commercial because it's, let's call it, I mean, it's a business and they want to act full time.
So this question has come up before. Why don't we just zone it commercial? Well, there's a couple of things with that. Firstly, it would be a spot zoning, which is really not the best thing to do by putting a commercial designation in a commercial zone right in the middle of a residential area. When this first came to us a number of years ago, there was a lot of discussion about this, and we thought a special bylaw where we can put special provisions on it would make the most sense. Otherwise, you zone it commercial and they decide that they're not going to be in the wedding business anymore and they want to sell the property. Any use that falls within the C1 zone or the commercial zone would be allowed to go in there. It could be a gas station, it could be a bank, it could be a bar. So certainly we don't want to look at rezoning that. You know, there's other options of creating more restrictions within the special events bylaw, perhaps. But I think we've dealt with most of the contentious issues that we thought that we could at the time in terms of parking, traffic, noise, music, hours of operation, that kind of stuff. So, and if you don't want to make a comment on this, you tell me, and that's absolutely fine. But in your opinion, being the person that is the planning expert, would increasing the number of venues turn it more towards a commercial entity in a residential area? And like I said, if you don't want to answer, you tell me, and that's absolutely fine. Well, I think it certainly would. I mean, the more you allow certain commercial type activities, and you know, is a wedding a commercial activity? Well, not necessarily, but the use of the property is being marketed as a commercial activity or process where people can go in and rent the facility and have their special wedding. It could be a wedding. This weekend, I think it's this weekend and next weekend, there are a couple of events that are going in there where I can't remember the name of the company, Bird's Eye, something or another, Birds 2. Anyways, it is a wreath making workshop where people pre-register and they pay their fee, and they're obviously renting the facility. The Healy's are renting the facility to this group so that they can teach a specific workshop. So that's going on during this weekend coming up and the weekend after that, I believe.
So quick question on that. Are those events included in the number of events that they're, okay.
Yes.
All right. No, that's very important. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. I have big concerns about this. We were being kind on the business end. I think when we recommended that we would give them 5 in 2021 because of COVID and recognizing that there was a loss there. But when you ask for 20 every year, it is a residential area. We have zoning, we have an MPS that sets out our zoning, and people buy because of that MPS. In a lot of cases, they buy their properties not expecting to have a commercial business land at their doorfront. And 500 feet, music carries a lot further than that. And who are the best people to know if there's a problem than the residents that are living there? And they're the actual ones that we're hearing from. And I just think that, I would have a very, very difficult time, telling somebody that, yeah, we're going to put a commercial enterprise right here in your residential area. I would be upset by that if I lived there, and so I find that very concerning. It never was commercial, and it shouldn't be commercial, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sabian.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thanks, Director Gentleman, again. I guess I see the economic potential with this, and I'm sure it's a driver for different avenues. I too have to say, though, it's in a residential area. And I know the 15 are already, we've got that in place. So, I mean, you can't really go backwards on that, but there's people up there with small families, and that's a lot of weekends that there's noise, and maybe, as Councillor Maxwell said, 500 feet is not a lot of distance sound does travel. I guess what my worry is, and I know Solicitor Mattard explained how a first reading works for maybe people at home that don't understand, but I'm just wondering with COVID now, how you're planning to get the public's input, because not everybody emails, not everybody writes. So how are you going to get a good, or how is council going to get a good read from the public aside? And I'm speaking for myself, I would want to do due diligence, and I'd want to go door to door up there, more than 500 feet, because those people live up there. And you know what? Some of them may be in favor of it that we're missing out on. And so I'm just wondering how you would plan that in these circumstances.
Well, we're certainly getting emails from people outside of the 500 feet. There is a community up there, and they do talk amongst themselves. And I mean, you can see from the list of the 43 emails that we got and respondents that we got in 2017, not all those people were in the 500 feet. It was a whole community up there that, had different comments and different concerns, and some supported the idea and others didn't. But I think the word is out there, and people know that this is on council's radar.
Okay, thank you.
Cio.
Thank you, Your Worship. And Council, I don't want to influence your decision too much, but in terms of process and the ability for both the community and the company to have a chance to tell you what they're thinking and doing, we have a bylaw review process, and this will go through that bylaw review process. It worked for us most recently on the noise bylaw and seemed to produce a result. It's the same process. I would just caution you, if you vote it down here, then the committee is making a decision. It will essentially not make it to council for that ratification of your opinions tonight. And it would be better to move the matter into the first reading, and then you have 2 opportunities formally at council. Plus, we happen to have one, we have several CACs that are going to come up before you get to second reading. In fact, I think there's 3 CACs before you get to second reading. So I just want to say you've got lots of time to vote on this as far as, is it good or is it bad? Tonight, you're just voting on whether it deserves some attention at council. And I want to make that very clear. You're not saying you approve it tonight. You're referring it to council. This committee, as I understand CAC and how you've structured it, doesn't make decisions, it makes referrals. It has a good discussion, has the directors present, really good discussion, but you don't decide, you refer. And so I would encourage you to let the process play out of a normal bylaw change. We have 100 of them, as you can see, so we're pretty good at it as the town. But don't feel you're sending a signal of approval. You're simply sending a signal that will allow the community to get engaged over the course of 3 separate meetings with full advertising. If you look somewhere in the paperwork, you'll see the list of ads and the deadlines and timelines. It's all laid out very comfortably so that it's not a sudden decision that we talk about for months afterwards without actually taking it to council. Thank you.
Thank you, CAO. Councillor Gerard, did you have your hand up again?
I do. I just have one quick question, and I'm almost positive I know the answer, but the special events bylaw doesn't supersede, and I guess this is for Bev, the new noise bylaw that we just passed. Like, they would be, right? They would be sticking with that. So I guess with that question answered, and if there's no more discussion, I would make the motion to send this to first reading.
It's already been.
Oh, sorry. Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
We're in the discussion phase. All good.
Yep.
All good.
Yep.
Not an issue. I will add for our new members of council that both our MPS and our LUB speaks to our residential properties and the fact that they are intended for residential use, and that the town is committed to enabling occupants of residential properties to engage and successfully conduct business, as clearly stated in this current events bylaw, and several other items, if you read the MPS businesses that can be done in residential areas that do not disrupt the peace and tranquility of a neighborhood within the residential zones. So under the current special bylaw, there is integration of business conduct with a tolerable level of activity for residents. To increase that number changes that formula. So those are the things that you should be cognizant of as you're chatting with people and as you're making these decisions, because I have no doubt that with your numbers and your emails posted on our website that you will hear from folks on this matter. And the other thing is that for folks up in that area is if you do not have access to online and you wish to get more information, you may contact Town Hall directly and speak with Jennifer West with regards to this, and she can provide you with the details as we've seen them here at Council. So if you're ready for the question, oh, sorry.
One moment.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm just wondering if we can make it clear that we're not just looking to hear from people within the 500 meters, that we're looking to hear from anybody within earshot of this place of business.
Certainly, Councillor Maxwell, and that's a very good point, is that not only is this about the residents, but as well, it's the overflow that comes from it, the business that rolls out to other merchants, to other retailers. So all of those things should be considered in our decision making.
Thank you.
All right, so the question is for Council Advisory Committee to recommend first reading of the proposed amendment to increase the number of events to 20 per year to the Special Events Bylaw, Chapter 96, to Council for first reading at the Council meeting on November 30th, 2020. Councillor Gerard, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor York, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian, how say you?
No.
And I say yes, so the motion is carried and this will go to council meeting. All right, we're moving on from our business and moving into correspondence. So CAO, there are several items of concern presented in the correspondence that you are requesting staff to review and to provide reports back to council at a future CAC meeting. Did you wish to address this?
Your worship, several of the letters are about the same area, and others are sort of engineering and works or operational issues. So we will do our best to respond to council. There is a complimentary letter from Nova Scotia Health, which doesn't fit into that, but the other ones are ones that staff will look at and come back with a response or a report for council.
Excellent, thank you. So for our new members of council, anytime a letter comes to us, it is added to our public website so that anybody in town can have a look at what citizens are saying. And these letters are there for you. And you can chat with people with regards to information that they have provided, and when the CAO takes it away, we don't have to make a motion because that's what he does. He takes matters and pushes it to staff, and then they return that information to us with reports, and then that's when we get involved. So if you have anything in the correspondence that's near and dear, please do not hesitate to contact the CAO with regards to that. All right, moving on to our new business. Our first matter of new business is the Valley Waste Bylaw. CAO, did you want to speak to that?
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry, it took me a minute to find my mute button. Yes, the Valley Waste Bylaw, as I understand it, has been under review over the course of the last year. And Valley Waste itself produced a model bylaw for the different councils to consider. And Kings County in particular put it through a legal review process, came back with some suggestions that are important. And collectively, the other CAOs are now taking a revised bylaw, which you have in front of you, through their councils. And in bold, under discussion, the highlights are there. One is that the directives, and the directives are kind of the how-to details of the waste management system, that these be approved by the individual councils. They were, as I understand it, they were approved by Valley Waste before. This is just a reinforcement process of the bylaw itself, or that portion of the bylaw. The second is that as the town, we appoint the bylaw official. Now it happens that the bylaw official is employed by Valley Waste, but we certify that that is our bylaw official also. And so all of us will do the same thing. And that gives them a very clear line of authority from us to that bylaw person. So some of you would remember Grace, who was the bylaw person. When she is acting for Valley Waste, she is effectively acting for us. This language clarifies that. And finally, Schedules 1A and 1B, again, are details under the bylaw and details that are delegated authority to Valley Waste. So those are the changes that are in there. The whole bylaw itself looks a little scary when you read it through, but my understanding and my review indicated it's essentially the bylaw that we've been working with for many, many years, but it has been freshened up and the lines of authority have been clarified. So I have very little hesitation in recommending that it go to council for first reading in November and go through the process that's outlined in the back of the report. But if there are any questions, I will do my best to respond to them.
Okay, if we could get a
Majority.
motion on the floor prior to
So,
discussion.
so moved.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second that, your worship.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that Council Advisory Committee recommend first reading of the proposed bylaw to council for first reading at November 30th, 2020 council meeting. And further, that second reading be scheduled for January 30th, 2021. And further, that existing bylaw, Chapter 32, be repealed on the adoption of date of the draft bylaw. Discussion, Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. Mr. CAO, was there any discussion around this? And I have attended some, being the alternate on Valley Waste, and I attended quite a few when there was a lot going on between Valley Waste and Annapolis County. And one of the things that I suggested to our rep to bring to the table was that there be a provision, and maybe it's not necessary now because Kings County is the only big player in there now. Before it was Kings County and the County of Annapolis both had veto power when it came to budget. And my suggestion was that they put a provision in the bylaws that says you have to be in good financial standing in order to use that. And I wonder if they had talked about that, because to my recollection, Annapolis County used their veto when they owed a fair amount of arrears to Valley Waste.
Yes, I would say no. From my understanding, that issue isn't addressed here, but we are looking at a thorough review of all the intermunicipal service agreements, kind of one after another. And that may be a better time. This, as I understand it, was essentially a review focused on ensuring that the legal powers of the authority are clear relative to the partner municipalities. So it sort of flows out of the discussion, but no, I don't think it was directly at your point at all.
Okay.
And I can ask about it.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? The question is that Council Advisory Committee recommend first reading of the proposed bylaw to council for first reading at November 30th, 2020 council meeting. And further, that second reading be scheduled for January 30th, 2021. And further, that the existing bylaw, Chapter 92, be repealed on adoption date of the draft bylaw. Councillor Gerard, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell?
Yes.
Councillor Savage?
Yes.
Councillor York?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian?
Yes.
I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you. All right, moving on to our next new business, and that's the Kings County Kentville Fire Inspection Agreement. And CAO, if you could lead us through that, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, back in the old days, I was on the other side of this particular agreement, and it used to be an informal letter between CAOs. And for some years, the building inspection arrangements between the town and the county have followed that process. This year, through a process that was started before me, it was started under Kelly Rice as CAO, and significant back and forthing was done to develop a joint agreement that formalizes our relationship in terms of the fire inspection. So we do the building inspection, there's an agreement for that, and I don't have it in front of me, but this is the fire component. It's critical. It works really well as far as we're concerned. There are some provisions in here about changing in regulations. It might change our fee. And the mayor and I know had a good chat about that today, because if the province changes the regulations under which this agreement is set today, we are supposed to get a 1-year advance notice that gives us time to work with the county and figure out the cost changes and that sort of thing. So the review, as I say, was done by my predecessor with some help from our solicitor. From everything I understand, the document is in shape to bring before you. It is essentially an administrative agreement. It's something that falls within my bailiwick, I guess, as CAO, whether to employ staff, retain staff, train staff, or whether to contract. The arrangement with Kings County has produced a higher level of quality, and I have to be careful because I used to be managing that level of quality, but I can assure you that the training requirements and the staffing requirements are kind of a matter of scale. So it does work best with what we have here. So we are essentially asking that council that CAC refer the agreement after you have discussion of it to council for approval, so that I and the mayor would be empowered to sign it on your behalf.
Thank you, CAO. So we have a recommendation leading to a motion. The Council Advisory Committee recommend the Kentville Fire Inspection Agreement to Council for approval and authorization for signature by the CAO and authorization by the Mayor and Town Clerk at the November 30th, 2020 Council meeting. I can have someone move that, please.
So moved, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Second.
And a second. Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that Council Advisory Committee recommend the Kentville Fire Inspection Agreement to Council for approval and authorization for signature by the CAO and authorization by the Mayor and Town Clerk at the November 30th, 2020 Council meeting. Discussion, Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Your Worship. Quick question, Mr. CAO. And probably it wouldn't be able to have it for the end meeting in November, but I'm just curious if staff or anyone's ever looked at the cost benefit of doing it this way, or service delivery, or if it's ever been entertained that we take this upon ourselves to fund.
Thank you, Councillor Gerard. I couldn't tell you. As I say, it goes back even before I was with Kings County. It was an arrangement that was in place between the two units. But we can look into it if you want. I think it would depend on the scale of the activity and our ability as a town of our size to have our own building and fire inspection people. But you've asked a question. I should try to find an answer for you and provide that information to you either in a public session or in an in-camera session, something like that. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Good question.
Is there any further discussion on this matter? Are you ready for the question? The question is that Council Advisory Committee recommend the Kentville Fire Inspection Agreement to Council for approval and authorization for signature by the CAO and authorization by the Mayor and Town Clerk at the November 30th, 2020 Council meeting. Councillor Gerard, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Savage, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor York, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Zabian, how say you?
Yes.
I say yes, the motion is carried. Thank you. All right, we have one further piece of new business, and that's as a request from Councillor Zabian for Deputy Mayor. Councillor Zabian, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So for the people watching that may not know how we elect a deputy mayor, we kind of, we do it in the warden style that the county had done, or municipal units have done, where, well, it's in where the councillors elect the deputy mayor, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So I find even going back over the last council group that was in, I think it causes a lot of division because you get elected, we're a small group of 6 people in mayor. And as soon as you get in, you yourself, if you'd like to be deputy mayor, you can't nominate yourself. You have to go and solicit a vote or a nomination, then you have to solicit votes. And in my opinion, we should be working together. We're not working for each other. I find that, you know, there's promises there. Well, you nominate me this year, I'll nominate you next year. And it does, from what I've seen in the past, I mean, you guys can maybe speak more on that, the ones of you that have been reelected, but it definitely does bring a different dynamic. And I think it's a poor start to a new group of people. I think there should be a better policy in place for that role. It's not an important role. I mean, you're healthy, and I mean, providing you're in good health, and you seem to be, you're gonna be here. So I mean, it's a title, but at the same time, I don't think that it's a good way to start off a brand new group of people. And so yeah, I'm just gonna throw that out there. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Is there any further comment? So I guess Councillor Maxwell.
Thank you. As a returning councillor, and the mayor and I have had this discussion way back when we were in our very first year about this process, and we discussed that, where I discussed with her that I didn't think it was a very good process. Being a coach for 35 to 40 years, it is a very divisive way to settle the team captain or the assistant captain or whatever. It is like the way that the county chose their warden. It's similar. That's why the county now has an elected mayor, because it created all kinds of issues with divisions on county council and things like that. Going through the last 4 years, it was a very divisive process, extremely divisive. It was almost dog eat dog. And we had blind sides, we had maneuvering, political maneuvering. If you want to get into deep politics, this is exactly the way to do it. And I think that there are much better ways of handling this and keeping team cohesion than what we have been doing. And it created problems every single year in my first term. And so I agree with Councillor Zabian. I think that as a council, we should be able to come up with a much better method of doing this, doing the deputy mayor selection. And I would never, ever, have my players ever go out and solicit votes from their fellow teammates for one or another person to be captain. If you have ever been on a team, you can imagine the chaos that would cause within your team. It would destroy your team. And this is the experience that I felt in my first term. And so if we can have a discussion, maybe at an orientation session or something like that, and see if 6 or 7 heads can't come up with a better way to do this, I think that's what we should do. Thank you.
Thank you. CAO, you wanted to chime in?
Well, only if I'm the last one to speak, Your Worship.
Well, it would appear that no one else is jumping at the bit.
Okay, so thank you. And both Councillor Zabian and Councillor Maxwell and I have had conversations. In fact, Councillor Maxwell has put forward 2 policy change request forms. And I had asked her if she minded if we didn't discuss it this evening, because frankly, I couldn't get the homework done on it for this meeting. And we agreed that it's something we could discuss in December. Now, I realize that means you already have the November discussion. But what I have agreed to do with Councillor Zabian today, we have several workshops between now and that November decision. And I think we should have some discussion informally about what to do and what some of the options are. Councillor Zabian has an option. Councillor Maxwell just suggested there should be some options. And I think a workshop is a place to talk about that, not to take it away from where the decision making happens, and that's at council. Should council come to the November meeting and feel that they need more information, more discussion, all they have to do again, and I'm looking at the solicitor here, is defer the decision, that you have that ability at any time. So don't feel that this is urgent. It's important. You've raised a concern, and the traditional way has its pluses and minuses. I'm not sure what the options are right now, but let's have some informal discussion about it and move it forward. But thank you to Councillor Zebian for bringing it forward tonight. He and I chatted about this being the place that we should discuss this, and you have done so. So thank you, everyone. And my suggestion is that we refer this discussion to one of the CAO orientation workshops and go from there.
Thank you, CEO. Yes, solicitor.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that, that this role, at least its primary role, of course, is to chair the meeting in the event that the mayor can't, and whether that's CAC or council. So it's not just the mayor's absence that might require someone to step in and chair. If the mayor wants to enter the fray, she may, if we were sitting in the horseshoe, she would relinquish her seat and let someone else continue to chair the meeting while she entered the fray, as opposed to acting as chairperson of the meeting. So this title just confirms who it is that would serve that role. If you don't appoint anybody, then you would have to decide at the time who was going to be the chairperson at that point to fill in, and you would decide it. It's for those who have chaired meetings, it's always nice to know in advance when you might be called upon. So those are just some things I would suggest you keep in mind when you're discussing how you might deal with this going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Solicitor. Councillor Gerard.
Thank you, Worship. And Brian, I know you wanted to be the last one to talk about this, but a question to you and to Jeff. Does the MGA have any strict, this is the way it's got to be done?
The MGA states that council shall select one of its council members to be deputy mayor.
So it could be musical chairs.
Shall select. Councillor Zebian.
I just wanted to add that if we have in one of our workshops find a solution, we wouldn't have to waste time on this every 12 months and have the same rigmarole every year trying to solicit. And I mean, I don't know about some of you. I'm not comfortable soliciting myself for a vote. I think it's very awkward. So if there was a way to do it, we could save a heck of a lot of time over the next 4 years. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, our next piece of business is public comments. I haven't received anything from Jennifer, so I'm going to assume there are no public comments.
That's correct.
Thank you. Then we need a recess to go into a special council meeting. And prior to going into that short council meeting, if we could do a biological break as well, and stop Facebook for a few minutes. So I'll go through the motion of having a recess for a special council meeting. So we're recommending that council take a short recess from the current CAC meeting to hold a special council meeting to approve the committees of council appointments. So the motion is to recess CAC meeting to conduct a special meeting. If I could have someone move that, please. Councillor Maxwell, thank you. Councillor York, I've got you as my second. Councillor Gerard, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Huntley, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Maxwell, how say you? Councillor Savage, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor York, how say you?
Yes.
Councillor Zebian, how say you?
Yes.
And I say yes, so the motion is carried. We will move into a recess, and if you could all be back at your Zoom spots at 8:15. We will start our special council meeting at that point. Thank you.